You think you have healthy balls. Let's be direct about what's inside them. You probably picture microplastics as an ocean problem. Think turtles and six-pack rings or floating bottles in a documentary you half-watched at 2 in the morning. Maybe you upgraded to a metal water bottle and felt responsible. Good for you. But here's the uncomfortable part. The plastic inside you might not have come from anything you drank. Researchers opened human testicles. Your body treats that tissue like a VIP room. They looked for plastic. In the largest study, they found microplastics in every single testicle sample they tested. So no, you don't have healthy balls in the naive sense. You have microplastics. This video isn't panic porn. This video is the gap between what you assume and what the evidence shows, and how serious scientists think microplastics might be, and what people, including famous biohackers, are actually trying to do about it. Wrong assumption number 1. Microplastics stay in the environment. Wrong assumption number 2. Reproductive tissue is sealed off. Biology built a bouncer called the blood-testis barrier. That barrier is basically a velvet rope between your bloodstream and sperm production. Toxicologists guessed they'd find little or no plastic in human testicles. In the biggest 2024 testicle tissue study, they found plastic in every human testicle they measured. 23 samples from ages 16 to 88. Roughly 329 micrograms per gram of tissue, and that's about 3 times higher than in the dogs tested alongside them. An earlier 2023 tissue study found microplastics in human testicles first, but with a smaller sample. Finding plastic in testicles is proof microplastics are present in your body. It's not proof your life is over. Here's where the tone matters. Saying microplastics in your balls is serious does not mean YouTube thumbnail apocalypse. Serious means plastic showing up in tissue is real, and the biology behind harm is plausible, and the human data is still young. A 2025 review in Nature Medicine put it this way: micro and nanoplastics have shown up across human tissues. They can cross barriers in experimental models. Early clinical work flags possible links to immune changes and heart effects and reproductive disruption, but most human studies are still small and measuring exposure is still messy. A 2024 reproductive health review in BJOG found only a handful of tissue studies, and all of them were small. That review called for larger validated work. But it still argued that public health should reduce plastic exposure, especially in pregnancy and childhood, because waiting for perfect certainty about harm is its own gamble. Microplastics have now been reported in ovarian follicular fluid and placenta, and semen and blood, and lungs and testes. Animal and cell studies show microplastics can cause hormone disruption and inflammation, and gamete damage in controlled settings. The honest seriousness score for microplastics in your body, high enough to pay attention, not high enough to pretend we already know your personal outcome. That's the gap between scary headlines and what the evidence actually supports. Responsible reporting lives in that gap. Most credible advice on microplastics starts boring. Reduce plastic intake and shedding, not miracle detox, just lifestyle friction. Clothing? Synthetic fleece and polyester shed microfibers when you wash them, and that's one of the biggest daily plastic sources people ignore while they're staring at a metal bottle. Food storage, glass and stainless overheated plastic. Don't microwave in plastic containers. Brian Johnson's own avoidance list includes plastic cutting boards and microwaved plastic. Water, reverse osmosis filtration, removes many plastic particles from drinking water. That's source control, not a full-body flush. Food packaging, less ultra-processed food and less contact with single-use plastic. Air and dust, indoor vacuuming with HEPA and less synthetic carpet. Boring but real ways to cut plastic exposure indoors. None of these lifestyle changes guarantees plastic-free testicles. They just lower the tap you're drinking from while the bathtub is still filling. Enter the influencer lane. Brian Johnson. He's the blueprint longevity guy who measures everything. In 2025, Johnson reported that microplastics in his ejaculate fell from about 165 particles per milliliter in November 2024 to about 20 by July 2025. That's roughly an 85% drop. Johnson also reported a similar drop in blood microplastics over the same window. Johnson credited daily dry sauna as the therapy he thinks mattered most. About 200 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 minutes, often right after workouts, while holding ice packs on his groin and head to protect fertility markers from heat damage. Johnson rehydrates heavily with electrolyte water after sauna, and he also changed exposure. Reverse osmosis water, and no plastic cutting boards, and no microwaving in plastic. So is sauna the cheat code for microplastics? Partially, but not for the reason Johnson's headline suggests. A 2015 sweat study in the Journal of Environmental and Public Health found BPA in sweat for some people even when blood and urine looked cleaner. BPA is a chemical used in plastics. Phthalates and some plastic-related compounds also move through sweat better than you'd guess. And sauna increases sweat volume, which plausibly helps you excrete dissolved plastic chemicals. But intact microplastic particles are a different problem. Those are the physical specks sitting in testicular tissue. Multiple reviews say there is no solid evidence you sweat out microplastic particles themselves. Your sweat glands aren't built to excrete solid polyethylene fragments. Johnson's microplastic result is a single person's before and after, with many simultaneous interventions run by someone selling a wellness brand. Impressive N equals one storytelling, not a randomized trial. Also, sauna heat hurts sperm without cooling. Johnson literally ices the boys for a reason. So the serious read on sauna is this. Sauna may help with some plastic-related chemicals, but it is not proven to vacuum microplastic particles out of testicles. And Johnson's ice packs are fertility protection, not a microplastic magnet. What about actual microplastic removal science? Chidosin is a fiber from shellfish shells, and it showed up in a 2025 preliminary human study using crawfish-derived chidosin that reported increased microplastic counts in stool after supplementation, which suggests enhanced fecal excretion of some polymer types. A 2025 rat study also found chidosin increased polyethylene excretion. Early and small and promising for flushing plastic through the gut, not a testicle power wash. Probiotics. A 2024 gut bacteria study identified strains like Lactobacillus paracasei DT66 that bound polystyrene particles in the lab and increased excretion in mice, which cut intestinal retention of microplastics sharply. Mouse gut results are not human testicle results, but probiotics are a real research direction for getting microplastics out of the body. ARPAH Stomp. The U.S. government launched a $144 million microplastics removal program to build clinical measurement tools, and in Phase 2 develop removal technologies drawing on pharmaceutical and bioremediation science. ARPAH itself says there is currently no validated way to remove microplastics from the body. That's the official signal that removal science is still early. Billions in concern about microplastics in the body and zero, approved particle evacuation protocol for your balls. Blood filtering approaches called therapeutic apheresis get discussed in review papers as a theoretical future route for microplastic removal. Still experimental fiction, not a clinic menu item. So return to the insult you clicked on. Healthy balls that are plastic-free and sealed off from the modern world. That fantasy was never fully available to you. But you're not powerless about microplastic exposure. The seriousness is this. Microplastic particles are already documented in reproductive tissue. Science is still racing to understand how much harm that causes, and governments are pouring money into removal research because finding plastic everywhere finally scared them. Your agency is simpler than the headlines make it sound. Cut plastic shedding and intake where you actually can. Don't treat influencer before and after charts like proof. Sauna might help you shed some plastic-related chemicals, but nobody has proven it vacuums particles out of your testicles. Gut binders and future medicine are coming, but they are still in the research pipeline, not the app store. You think you have healthy balls. You have microplastics, and you also have a choice between panic and denial and informed friction. If you're still likely wrong about sleep and boredom and aliens under Romania, and what's inside your body, then subscribe to Likely Wrong. This video is for education and curiosity, not medical or fertility advice. Talk to a clinician for personal labs, not a stick figure with a sauna meme.